All right, Pete, what do we got up?
Well, what we've got up now is I think we got Daniel in the ground here somewhere, right? Daniel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And I think most everybody in the club knows Daniel. He's a long time, used to be a long time member. It looks like, where the hell, you outside now somewhere?
I am in my vehicle right now. I had another Facebook video I had to do, and I thought I could do it from my house, and then I got yelled at and had to go somewhere to do it. So I don't know. I looked at my schedule and it didn't say anything about it, so I ended up being late to that one. But I'm in the vehicle. I've got a little phone mount here. This is where I do about half of my Zooms from these days. Okay.
Do you want to do that, or you want to get somewhere where you can feel better, or what?
Yeah, I'm pulling off into a parking lot here. Can you hear me okay? All the audio good?
I think
okay.
so.
Yep, sounds great.
Yeah, I'll just pull off here into a parking lot. That way I don't cause a vehicle accident.
You get somewhere safe. We got a couple things we'll cover for maybe 5 minutes or so to get you there, okay?
Okay, cool. I'll be home in about 5 minutes, so I'll just
okay. Then we'll
when I get there.
Okay, sounds good. I see Daniel is now home, and Allie must have let him back in, so he's probably pretty good to go. I think everybody knows Daniel. Is there anybody here that hasn't met Daniel, knows who Daniel Andrews is? He's one of the co-founders of Captains for Clean Water. He's a local boy, used to be a guide, and until this summer had forgotten what fishing was all about, but he now he's probably fished as much this last summer, last 5-6 months as he did the previous 4 years. So without any further ado, I'm going to put Daniel on, let him talk about the situation with the releases of the Caloosahatchee and things that are going on with the water management right now. Go ahead, Daniel.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me on. Sorry, I was dealing with the vehicle situation. Like I said, I was supposed to be at this other Facebook event. I didn't realize I had to be there in person. So I was racing to get home to do this. But thanks for having me. We're getting discharges from the lake right now. One of the things that we're really pushing right now is to get the Army Corps to change the way they manage Lake Okeechobee. They're currently revising the Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule and developing a new Lake Okeechobee system operating manual. Right now, the state and the federal government honor these consumptive use permits that the state has. They're basically water allocations. 90% of that water is allocated for the sugar industry, that's used on an annual basis. They use Lake Okeechobee basically as a personal reservoir, water supply reservoir that's, it's taxpayer expense. We're largely covering the bill to have that water managed that way that benefits them. And we have had much better management of the lake the last 2 years. If we would have started this wet season with a lake level that the sugar industry wants to see, which is, no lower than 12.5 foot, we would have been having really bad discharges going back, probably starting about the 4th of July. So as bad as things are, they could be much, much worse right now. And going forward, they certainly have the capacity to be much, much worse, because none of that water management that's taken place, especially last year in 2019, none of that has been codified yet. And that's not something they've adopted. It was just a deviation from their schedule. We get a new Army Corps colonel every year or two. They're empowered to make decisions, and the Army Corps responds to really nobody. There's some people that they respond to in Department of Defense, but it's not really politically driven. So it's a really hard process to try to change, is what we're finding. They do things the way they want, and there's not a whole lot of accountability there. But I think they have definitely received the message. I mean, we saw that positive lake management last year, and this year we kind of had carryover of that. The lake got low last dry season. They weren't proactively moving a ton of water south, but we got down to that 11-foot mark. And that's something that we definitely could use a lot of support on right now. We have a call to action up on our website right now. You can take action to ask the Corps to change the way that the lake levels are managed. And I know you can find that. We just released a film 2 days ago on Tuesday afternoon. It was a really cool project that we got to work on when COVID hit. We had 2020 was packed with us for events. We were needing to hire more people just to execute the events that we had on our schedule. All of that fell apart. We were looking, how can we be more effective? How can we keep, putting the pressure on when people are paying attention to a lot of issues? We quickly noticed that social media trends were on the rise. People were on their phones a lot more, scrolling through Facebook, Instagram. And we had an opportunity to put together a film. It's called Everyone in Between, where we highlight the issues here in the Everglades, and also we partnered with Trout Unlimited and Bonefish and Tarpon Trust to produce it. We also look at the issue of Pebble Mine in Bristol Bay, and look at the film. Pull it up on your TV. It's about a 35 minute piece. And the reason we did that, we get pressure daily to get involved with all these different issues. But the reason why we picked that one is it's another iconic destination fishery that's very much at risk. If you look at what it's going to take to truly fix the Everglades at this point, you're looking at an $18+ billion investment to restore the Everglades. To save Bristol Bay, it costs $0. They just have to not mess it up. And the thing about both of these destinations is the people in Florida are not going to be able to solve the Everglades problem, and the people in Alaska are not going to be able to save Bristol Bay. It is literally going to take everyone in between to stand up and fight for these issues. One of the biggest challenges that we're going to have over the next couple of years with Everglades restoration, you have two main pieces. It's the operations component, which I was just talking about, lake management, and then the infrastructure, building the reservoirs and the wetlands to flow water south through the Everglades. They go hand in hand. The second part of that, the restoration projects, which is really what our primary focus was when we founded the organization. The Corps is anticipating a significant increase in federal funding for Everglades restoration. And although we do have a strong presence of appropriators from Florida, especially in the House, and bipartisan on that, we have Democrats and Republicans on appropriations. It really takes a lot of consensus from other parts of the country to spend that money. They need to see that investment that, so many people travel to Florida every year. They need to see that, the representative from Louisiana or Texas or Massachusetts or Michigan or wherever that may be, they need to see that making investments in Florida is also going to keep their citizens happy, because so many people come down here, they experience the resources. And we've done a really good job of expansion on the East Coast. We usually have a lot of participation from people. If you look at Florida on a map, straight north of us. But when you get west of the Mississippi, we've had a really hard time working with a lot of the senators and representatives out west. And I think it's largely because those people don't come to Florida quite as often. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't. So what our goal is, to work with groups like Trout Unlimited and all the other groups working on Pebble to get their supporters more involved with our fight and get our supporters more involved with their fight. It doesn't take a lot to be involved with either one. Simply paying attention to the issues and filling out a call to action goes a really long way. So, we've had tremendous response. It's gotten the attention of a lot of CEOs of big outdoor brands, Yeti and Orvis, and a lot of brands like that have been involved with the project to begin with. But a lot of our hope with this was getting them even more engaged in this fight. Their businesses have everything to lose if we lose these places, and we've seen that it's been harder and harder to get new people involved in this fight. Just since we've launched that Tuesday, almost 90% of the visitors we've had to the site, the people that have viewed it and have taken action, almost 90% have never been involved with Captains for Clean Water before. So for us, that's a really big success. We often find ourselves preaching to our own choir a lot, which you can't really accomplish a whole lot when you're doing that. You have to be getting new people involved constantly. And that's why we took this project on. And likewise, Save Bristol Bay, Trout Unlimited have gotten a ton of new members and supporters from here in Florida that, have been following Captains for a long time and, are at least aware of the Florida issues and have taken a further step to get involved there. So, for us we kind of have this double fight right now. The lake operations, which, is a challenge because the Corps doesn't really respond to pressure. But, we've been actively working, the Biden transition team, a good friend of mine is sitting on the Department of Interior transition team there, and is trying to make inroads over at Department of Defense transition to, make sure that they're clearly seeing all the issues we have here in the Everglades. I think we have a pretty big opportunity now to make a lot of noise over there and make sure they really see the depth of this problem, and hopefully we can get some help on that operations side. And then, she's also very focused on the president's budget, making sure that that's going to be significantly increased going forward. We're kind of cautiously optimistic with that, I would say. You've got what's looking like the Senate's going to stay Republican, the House is going to stay blue, and the president will be a Democrat. So you've got some kind of barriers there, but we're hoping that we can get everybody on board. I think if the president's willing to put the budget out, which I believe he will be from our early discussions there, but if we're able to get that money in the budget, the House would certainly follow suit. Then it would just be a matter of getting the Senate to appropriate that. So making sure that all stays on track, while at the same time making sure those operational changes start to come into play. We've got awesome proof that it works. Look at last year. The lake was managed better. We have way more grass in the lake. The lake is a lot healthier. We had no harmful discharges last year, and the Everglades got a little bit more water than it has in years past. So that's, going forward, I think you're going to see a lot more messaging from Captains for Clean Water around those lake operations issues. That is, again, it's something that we can get pretty much immediate benefits from. If you start with a proactive strategy in March and April, or even really February, March for lake operations, if you start, well, number one, give the Caloosahatchee the water it needs then, and then get that water flowing south to the Everglades during the dry season, it's going to make more storage capacity in the system overall. So we get the question every day, what can be done to stop the releases today? There's really not a whole lot. The lake is 16 and a quarter this morning. That's a very high lake, especially, with all the weird craziness going on in the tropics this year. The Corps is, I would say, this weather system, they were ready to blow even more water out the estuaries, and the water management district, under the leadership of the new governing board, has been pushing them to not do that as much as possible. We saw the same thing last year. Hurricane Dorian came up, had a Cat 5 hurricane hovering right off the coast of Florida, and because of that proactive lake management and the new governing board telling the Corps, don't do it until it's absolutely necessary. Those proactive strategies definitely pay off in the short term. So our focus going forward is really both of those, as well as trying to hit some of the different markets out west and the Midwest, to get more of our support base built in those areas, to where we can apply pressure there. And as a charter guide, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, New York, New Jersey were probably 80% of my clients that came down here during season. And those people need to use their voice back at their homes to make sure that their representatives understand the importance of Florida to them. So that's kind of the big picture of what's going on right now. I'd like to take some questions if y'all have any.
So Daniel, what are the things that we can do now to help you? What do you need from us? How can a club like ours help you?
So I think a couple ways. Number one, it takes a lot of resource for us to continue to explain why people out of state need to pay attention. And I think that would be something that the Sanibelff FlyFishers would be able to kind of, help support us there by just educating your members consistently. Hey, if you come to Florida once a year, once every 10 years, or you have a house here, or whatever the case may be, your voice really matters in this issue. I would say right now, out of state might even matter more than in state. So the ability to reach out to members of Congress, if you have a personal relationship with anybody, or know anybody who has personal relationships with members of Congress that comes down here to Florida, educate them on this issue, and let them know that even though they live in another state, this is something that matters. If even better, if any of y'all have connections to somebody that's on appropriations that's not from Florida, those are definitely relationships that we're looking to build right now. Our Florida members have been really good at trying to get us, on both sides of the aisle. They've been pretty good at getting us in front of other appropriations members to try to make the case and explain how Florida's economy is largely made up of out-of-state visitors, and it's a lot of value there. So continuing to spread the word outside of Florida is huge, and then constantly staying on, paying attention for when we do put out call to actions on this stuff, to where you can talk about it amongst the club. I know there's a lot of SFF members that are pay really close attention to all this stuff. Just make it something you talk about at every meeting. Whatever the most recent call to action is, from captains, from Everglades Trust and Bonefish Tarpon Trust, we're all working on these issues, and there's usually something that some or all of the organizations are pushing for. Read the newsletters and make it part of your discussions every month in the club.
Very good. Thank you.
Let me just make a comment that the film that Daniel just spoke about that addresses the Pebble Mine and also the Everglades is probably the finest piece of videography I've seen. And if anybody hadn't seen it, they ought to go to the captain's website. I think that's where it's available now, and take a look at it.
Thanks, Tony. It was definitely a labor of love. We actually produced it entirely in-house. So it was an all hands on deck effort to get it done. And Noah, our in-house videographer, we got some footage from a couple of other creatives for it, but yeah, it was he put heart and soul into that thing, and it definitely showed. We're all really proud of the work he did on it, and it was just really hard taking. We worked on it kind of on and off from about April of this year, literally right up until we launched it on Tuesday. But it was really hard taking 6 months of content and trying to pare it down to 30 minutes.
Well, it's remarkable.
Thank you,
Yes.
Tony.
Anybody got other questions for Daniel? I don't hear any. We'll definitely.
Any idea how much longer they're going to be releasing water? Any guess?
My best guess would be not more than 3 weeks, unless we start getting a lot of rain and have a lot more rain forecasted. I think if the tropics are clear and it's looking like we're not gonna get a whole lot of rain, it could be less. But again, that lake is 16 and a quarter now, so that's having the lake this high this late in the year is not a good sign for next year. I'm a lot more concerned with next year than I am what happens right now. That they need to get that, essentially 5 feet off that lake, 5 or more feet off that lake between now and June 1st of next year. So they're going to have to maximize beneficial discharges to the Caloosahatchee. That's the water that we need. We usually get that cut off every year. They're going to have to do that and find ways to get as much water under the new bridges on Tamiami Trail as they possibly can, to get that lake down to where it needs to be. So, I would say whatever damage is done in the next couple of weeks is a lot less of a concern to me than what's next year is going to look like. Because if we start next year with a 13-foot lake, we have a really good chance of getting discharges when algae's at its peak, which is usually late June. And when you start getting those early discharges, that does a lot of damage. A lot of our bait spawns out in June and early July, and those discharges, when you get really bad discharges and all that bait is real young, it just wreaks havoc on the estuary. You don't have a recruitment of the scaled sardines, threadfin herring. They all die, and that's what I'm not looking forward to is next year at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things too with trying to get that water down is going to be a trick, because if you think about it, and I've looked at this in a couple different ways, but at the level it's at right now, if you try to get it down to 13 feet even, but it's got to go below 13. If you go down 5 feet, you're looking at roughly, it's about 1,000 square miles of surface area at somewhere in there around 14, 15 feet. That's 5,000 acre miles of water that's got to come out of there. And at 640 acres to a square mile, that's a ton of acre feet of water. And it's going to be really, really difficult. And I share your concern for that, to get that lake down below. It should be down to 12 or even less than 12. And it's going to be a bear to do that for them.
Yeah. And I mean, I hate fishing La Nina years. The snook fishing is usually really good in the backcountry, but I mostly tarpon fish. I think I've flats fished about 2 days in the last 4 years. The rest of my time I spent tarpon fishing, and it's those La Nina years, you have a warm, wet winter. The fish don't show up in as good of numbers the next year, and you usually have, worse water quality. It's really unpredictable. I was looking at a lot of the data the water management district had at their meeting a month ago, and those years it's pretty hard to predict what the rain is. You get a lot of freak weather events, or it could be really dry. So it just puts water managers in a bad spot. But we need to hope for the lake's perspective and our water's perspective. We need to hope it's a dry winter. If it's a warm, wet winter, next year's going to be really ugly.
Right. And I agree with you with this high discharges of water that we're going to see. It's going to really keep pulling snook in further and further up into the river, up into the estuaries. And that's what we're seeing right now, I think. And it's going to continue. And if we still have that fairly high volume, into March and April, it's going to make a lot of those fish think twice, especially those big mature fish, before they pull out of there and come onto the beach to spawn. And I think we may see one of those years like the FWC researchers showed that, best case in the Caloosahatchee, 40% of those fish spawn or leave the estuary in any year. And we'll probably see that same thing this next year. So, but the fish will be there. That's the one thing that matters. Any other questions, folks? If not, I'd like to thank Daniel. I appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Anytime you need an update, feel free to reach out. I think most of you have my contact information. Pete and Bob and others do for sure. And Tony, if ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Okay, we'll do it, bud. Thanks again. Say hi to the wife.
Will do.
See you later.
Thanks a lot. Thanks again.
Yep.